In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about the public domain and how you can use it to grow your online business. Next, we're going to discuss a public domain protection tip. So if you want to prevent someone from taking an exact copy of the material you have pulled from the public domain is by following the minimal creativity requirement. And so this means that someone must add a substantial amount of original content in order to claim a valid copyright. And so what you do is it kind of just basically protects your efforts. And so you could give people, from taking an exact copy of the material you have pulled, you could actually do things like, if they're going to use this document, you need to say that they need to add a substantial amount of original content in order to claim a valid copyright to it, and things of that nature. It prevents people from taking the work as is and then claiming copyright on the work. And so this is a good public domain protection tip to use and to prevent someone from taking an exact copy of the material you have pulled and using it without you being able to use it again. So make sure that you look at ways that you can protect yourself with public domain. The Library of Congress, as we've discussed, is an absolute goldmine for finding good public domain content and information. So this is the largest collection of public domain books, and it has an online database that can be searched. They have already created hundreds of digital versions of public domain works already, much like the Gutenberg project. And you can download these books and decide if you think they would sell well to your market or not. And so that helps you determine if this would be something, worth pursuing, a niche worth pursuing. It also means that you don't have to go through the struggle of maybe you have to go to the library to get a copy of it, of a public domain book to scan, or maybe you have to buy a book, but it saves you time, energy, and if you can just download it, and that's what they offer. You could also purchase a copy of a book from a site like addall.com, addall.com, and then you could scan using the OCR scanner and edit it so it can be your own. And typically, though, that's just another option. So if you find something that's in the public domain on the Library of Congress website and you can't seem to find a digital version of it on either Gutenberg or the Library of Congress website, then you could go to a site like I mentioned here, addall.com, which lets you do this for a minimal expense, which lets you buy a book for a lower cost, and then you can take it and scan it, and it's all yours to do as you want with it. So one of the easiest ways to profit from public domain, as to wrap this up, is to go through eBay. So selling public domain content on eBay in the form of physical CDs and DVDs is one of the best and easiest ways to make money with the public domain content. So this means you take the public domain book, the public domain content, whatever it is, and you can compile it onto a CD or DVD. You could burn it onto that, and you could sell it through eBay. Some websites are pulling content which includes documentaries, historical films, vintage DVDs, and repackaging them for resale. And these are websites or online merchants or sellers selling them through eBay or other websites as well. So the public domain and eBay and how they kind of work together. Selling public domain content on eBay in the form of physical CDs, like I said, is one of the most best and easiest ways to make money within the public domain. You should run a search on eBay for sellers who are actively selling public domain items. So this means you could do searches for the phrase even public domain. And there are some sellers making great money simply listing public domain content on eBay. And you can see a lot of completed listings through eBay for public domain related content. And like I said, many sellers even are using public domain in their keywords, which makes finding the listings simple. So this means they are using the term public domain. They're telling people this book's in the public domain a lot of times. And you could also use this, leverage this tool to find additional books that you could consider packaging, finding the download of it, the download version of it at Gutenberg for free, and then you could actually take that and use it yourself and start profiting from that content. So say you find somebody selling a public domain book and you say, that looks like an interesting topic. You could go to Gutenberg or the Library of Congress site and do a search for it and see if you can find a digital version of it. And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. If you cannot, then maybe you could go find a cheap copy of it to purchase, or you could buy it from that seller for relatively low cost and then scan it or take the information that they have and rework it. Browse those listings to find names of authors or book titles that you can find to use for your own purpose. Just like I said, a lot of times the author is very key because a lot of authors are from certain eras, certain time frames, and so that you know that they everything they wrote in that time frame would be considered a public domain work that you can tap into. And you can use eBay to generate a great swipe file. Now, a swipe file, just a file that you can turn to look up authors that are typically in the public domain, to look up topics, books, things like that, subjects, anything that you can think of that would help you when you're doing more public domain research. But you can use eBay as a research tool to see what your market's doing. You can use eBay to sell on as well. So the public domain and eBay go great together as well. And then, again, use eBay to generate a good swipe file for yourself. So here's just a recap of what I just discussed relating to the public domain and eBay.